Hi everyone. Today I spent my day at a convergence at the Northam Detention Center, also known as Yonga Hill. It's a new facility built by the government where they send refugees to live, and apparently it's also overpopulated, unfortunately. And a while ago, uh, some of the media, 7 News especially, ran what I believe is a bit of a scare campaign by actually showing and filming the detention center and saying how much it'll cost our taxpayers. But I'm here not to talk about the political side of things because opinions are like assholes, so everybody has one, right? Today I'm going to be talking about going to the convergence as a humanitarian for that purpose. So, refugees, as I said, everyone has an opinion on them, and whether they're genuine refugees or not, ultimately they are still people, they are still human, like you, like me. And first, I have to say that it's they don't really have an easy time. So although it's not like, say, being a refugee, a Burmese refugee in Malaysia where you can get tortured and whipped, or being a political prisoner in North Korea, like in the gulags, yes, not as bad as that. But if you really think about it, if you're stuck in a detention center and you don't know whether you'll be able to uh, be granted a refugee status visa, you will have poor mental health outcomes. It's like being in prison in some ways, except maybe it's a bit more regulated, so they might not, get raped by other refugees, like not that we know of anyway. So, unfortunately, because of these poor mental health outcomes, what tends to happen is there's a lot of self harm. It's like a land of depression inside there. And unfortunately, there are also suicides. And the reports from Insights has mentioned that the Serco guards, Serco is the company which runs this detention center, they seem to belittle these refugees or asylum seekers. So definitely that will then negatively impact on their mental health as well. And so social workers have then said that every time there's a convergence there, um, their mental health outcomes would improve slightly, at least for a while, because it shows that they're running away from political persecution. They come to Australia and get treated poorly by these guards, so it looks as though the government doesn't think much about them, the guards don't think much about them, but hey, at least there are some people in society that do, and that's the people who come for the convergence. So there are people who care and who are concerned about their welfare, right? So today what happened was, we met early in the morning, well, mid-morning, and we didn't completely fill 3 busloads of concerned people. Most of them are activists, but not all. So the drive to Northam is about 1.5 hours away, but we stopped. We had a pit stop at a place where there's a local pie shop, and yeah, that was quite pleasant. So when we finally got there, the buses were only allowed to stop at a certain point when we finally reached Northam. And we all had to get down from the buses and walk towards the detention center. And the police have designated a car park which we're allowed to have our rally. So even as we entered, they were handing out these official flyers by the Australian government saying what was allowed and what was not allowed. So I kind of asked the person handing them out, hey, are these our programs? And hey, are the police officers our tour guides? Because there were so many of them, right? So, anyways, jokes aside, we went to the car park and there were several speeches, right? There was a Greens parliamentarian among them. There was an industry watchdog for Circle. And what was the most emotional was there was an actual ex-refugee who went through the entire system. He also spoke for a while. So, um, yeah, he spoke about some unfortunate things that happened when he was a refugee itself. And that probably was the most touching because it's a first-hand um, account. It's a primary source of what happens in detention. So after that, we did some chanting as usual, and then we actually chalked the car park. So we wrote things like freedom, stuff like that, on the actual car park with chalk. And from that point, we exited the facility. Well, we were never in the facility in the first place. We were only at the car park. And we could see it was just like in the news. It's big, but apparently overpopulated. And it's really high security, so fences all around. And it's said to be the equivalent of high security, a maximum security prison. That's what it was said to be like, with like motion sensors and things like that, barbed wire. Yeah. Anyways, we went to the top of the hill because our objective was to let them know that we're actually here. There are concerned people here. So from there, we could see there's this certain part of the refugee camp which is a recreational area, which the refugees are allowed to go, I think, for a while in the afternoon. So even though the top of the hill which we were at was quite far away, and they looked like ants to us, we probably looked like ants to them as well, we could actually see them, and some of them were waving. And of course, we waved back, we chanted, we had banners, right? And so we held the banners high, and we chanted. And media did come along, right? Media came, and there were plenty of police, and throughout the whole process, they kept a watchful eye on us, as though we were going to cause trouble. You know, it's an act of civil disobedience in some sense, but we weren't really there to cause trouble violently. And so the media covered the story. We stayed there for a while. We released balloons into the air as well to show that we were there, to show the refugees at their recreational area. And slightly later, we found out that, well, the media had started reporting on it, and credit to them, it wasn't too biased. They didn't demonize us at all. In fact, they quoted some of the quotes that some of the things that we have said, and they did that quite accurately. And also slightly later, we actually got news that there was some feedback from the refugees in the detention center, and as we expected, they were very grateful, they were very thankful, because it's just a humanitarian thing, which they feel the warmth from our hearts, that we think of them as equals and as humans too. So um that's all I have to say. I was just describing my experience, but um, I don't regret going there at all, because now at least when someone attempts to demonize refugees and say something like, "Oh, but you haven't been to Northam before, how would you know?" I could say I have actually been there. I've seen it. I haven't been inside because I'm not a social worker, but at least, you know, I've seen some of the refugees, and that what the Refugee Rights Action Network across several university campuses, what they do is a worthwhile cause to pursue. Thanks.